Hey everyone, Rua here with my next Q&A video. I could have sworn we were here only a month or two ago, but alas, here we are again. This channel's following is really picking up steam, it seems. Now, before we get going, I should apologise to you all for this video being a little bit late. I wasn't on much over the Christmas and New Year's holidays, given family gatherings and my workload at my job really picking up. I'll be getting back to my regular upload rate now, I hope, but now let's get into it. Gazel asks, "Hi mate, how come when you do a video of jobs etc. you never show us your gear? Why is that?" Well, I try to show my sets, but I am a little bit inconsistent in doing so. I played around with various formats and just settled on showing key base sets, with some links to my AH profile sets. If I showed absolutely every single set I use on all my jobs, then my videos would be a good 10 minutes longer. Elion Dark asks, "Actual question, what is the best way to tank summoner burn setups as a rune fencer? For a summoner burn you need to spike your volatile and cumulative enmity fast, so you need your SP with a full enmity set to really skyrocket your hate. You need to use all of your abilities with an enmity set honestly. I've never had any issues on the few occasions I've been in such a setup. It's your second SP, idyllic, which will be the biggest help in this setup. Avatars have low HP and defenses generally speaking, so they need idyllic to survive attacks in this situation." Alanord asks, "What endgame mobs are soloable, and what are the job, strat and gear requirements you need to meet to get the win for each?" Honestly, a lot of my endgame solo strategies came from a lot of trial and error. It really depends on the NM and its mechanics, something I can pick up from observing a few fights. Gear requirements? Again, this really depends on the job. Everything is situational in this game. But I would say Race and Gema tier 1 armor is enough to get by. Giu Walker asks, "How would you rate Monk in today's endgame content given the current changes versus before? Which of your jobs besides Geo do you feel is most useful in endgame content?" Monk got a massive buff with the December update. A fully buffed Monk will absolutely brutalize anything it can maintain hate on, as impetus and counterstance stacked result in some devastating counter chains. Just see this clip for it in action. As I said in my last video, Monk's problem prior to the update is that both these abilities were hamstrung by a lower accuracy cap compared to other jobs' weapon choices. These problems are gone, and I think the playing field has been roughly leveled. Not entirely, but it's a lot more even than it was. If they added an enmity bonus per counter to counterstance, like a ninja's Isekigen, they could potentially break Monk. It's the only change I can think of now. As for my other jobs, Bard and White Mage easily. I often see so many groups looking for those jobs, and I can do them both more than well enough." This person wanted to remain anonymous. "With the last update increasing hand-to-hand accuracy cap and several jobs attack caps, I hear a lot about capping accuracy and attack for different kinds of content. I know it depends on what sort of group buffs you have available, but how do I know how much attack and accuracy I should shoot for? I always say that 1200 accuracy before any form of food or buff is the minimum accuracy you should always have before doing anything remotely high level. Attack is a lot easier to get through trust NPCs and abilities like Berserk or Last Resort. Accuracy is what you really need to focus on. For group content, you should have at least 2 support role jobs in a 6-man party as standard, so you should not be having too many problems on that front." The Rizarin asks, "What is current endgame? How much time is needed per event to be committed, and what is the common event times? What is the current average gear that is acceptable per job range to start endgame?" Current endgame is Aeonic runs, Omen, Dynamis Divergence and Intense Ambuscade on its highest setting, if you ask me. Old content like Delve, Skirmish and Incursion are still technically endgame, but the majority of the player base has either moved on or they steamroll such content on the regular. Aeonic runs can take anywhere between a week to a full day depending on the group. Dynamis is roughly 2 hours per run. Omen runs take around half an hour each with a solid group, and Ambuscade is really dependent on the month in question. Gear-wise, support jobs and mages generally have a lower gear requirement, probably because they're needed so much. Supports need more investment, Bard especially. Tanks have a similar demand, while melees have a very high investment requirement. Gist of Everything asks, "Is there a Bard or a White Mage guide anywhere in your plans?" My White Mage guide has already been done, and Bard is indeed in the works. It might take a while before you see it though. Scott Chocolate asks, have you played Dark Souls? Are you into Dark Souls lore? Nah, can't say I have. I need to get back into console gaming at some point, perhaps in a month or so when I have a better idea how 2019 might pan out. You see, I could be moving over to the USA to do my PhD, so it doesn't make much sense investing in a gaming rig or a console if I might be moving again so soon. Deathime asks, I was wondering if you could give a couple of tips on improving your overall gameplay. I'd say working on your reaction speed is probably the best tip I can give. No matter your role, being able to respond to bad things happening by going into a DT set in time could save lives. Knowing how to lay out your macros as well could potentially make your life a lot easier. This is so important to White Mage especially that I dedicated an entire section to doing so in its guide. Rebellion Zero asks, since starting with the guides and editorials, how has your view on other jobs, as well as the game as a whole, changed from then? It seems to me that, from watching YouTube, you lean heavily towards heavy DPS jobs and are more interested in trying new things, like with Monk. That's a very good observation. I found that the game still does have a remarkable depth to it, which is great to see after all this time. Yeah, I lean heavily towards DPS jobs because I want to demonstrate that players don't need to rely on the same jobs for every single occasion. You could say I'm on a mission to establish an alternative to the current meta. Will I succeed? Honestly, probably not, but hey, it's worth a shot, isn't it? Benjamin Wygant asks, do you use any publicly available spreadsheets to theorycraft weapon skill damage? How do you figure out a theoretical target's defense or evasion? I honestly go by the level of content and the job of the target to get a rough estimate on how much support or enfeebling is needed to hit the PDIF cap. I do know some people in game who are seriously good at crunching numbers and calculating things like this out, so if I draw a blank, I tend to refer to them. Upside Down asks, what are some niche or low-key cool fun job combinations in the current meta? Corsair and Geomancer is a nasty duo for anything weak to magic damage, for very obvious reasons I should hope. Red Mage works well with pretty much anything I've also found. Monk and Thief is a brilliant melee duo, as the Thief can keep the target on the Monk for the Monk to really abuse counter stance. I've been having a real blast with that lately. This strategy also works with Monk and Ranger if the Ranger knows how to use decoy shot properly. Finally, Dragoon and literally any other DD job in high-end content involving a long drawn-out fight. Dragoon to me is one of the best DD jobs for Dynamis Divergence Wave 3. It won't hit as hard as a Warrior or Samurai on average, but it keeps itself off the top of the zone boss's hate list, so it can afford to be a lot more reckless. Better yet, a Dragoon can also completely shed the hate of the other DD in its party by using Super Jump with Spirit Surge, with 2 users removing all built-up hate the other DD has. Use Fly High to use it back to back. That's a seriously underrated strategy right there. Sammy Man asks, do you think you'll ever be able to do a Scholar job guide? Someday, but like Bard, it's a ways off though. Blackbeard asks, Red Mage and Monk used to be a power duo that could do anything together at level 75. I believe this duo carried over to level 99 and is even stronger, but I want to know how it is now, and if there are any other duos out there, and your thoughts on power duo substituting full parties in general. I just mentioned some duos. Red Mage works well with pretty much anyone, so I haven't noticed it being a standout partner for Monk honestly. A 3-man team of a DPS Rune Fencer, Bard and Geomancer can pretty much low-man most Omen content. Standing 720 asks, did the December update change your Monk TP set? Do you use the MP body during Impetus but everything else same, or did you overhaul for the new Impetus buff? Yep, I now use the Biku Cyclist when Impetus is active. It's really nasty. I honestly wish YouTube still let content creators add annotation boxes to their videos post-production, because I would really like to go back to that guide and mention this. This person wanted to remain anonymous. What is your favourite Final Fantasy game? Aside from this one, if it is. 9. My introduction to this series was with Final Fantasy VII, as it likely was with a lot of other Western gamers, but Final Fantasy IX really struck a great chord with me. Not only did I find that it stood on its own as a brilliant story in the series, but Final Fantasy IX also resulted in me going back to explore the earlier entries in the series, like 4 and 6. Final Fantasy IX earns my top accolade for this. Jordan Brown asks, will you be uploading more frequently in 2019? Also, when's that Sam guide? I hope to be, but like I said earlier, I might be in for a very busy year if I get taken on to do my PhD, Moving countries is never easy. Take it from me, I've done it more than enough to know so. That guide will be appearing sometime in the coming months. It appeared on the recent community poll for me to gauge how much people wanted it. Obviously they do, so you'll get it sometime in the coming months. Jeff Howell asks, gear swap setup and how to use for new and returning players. Hey, you know what, I might as well at this point. Keep an eye out for it. Javon Gill asks, how do you go about farming beads for Ionic weapons? Is the combatant's talk any good? Capping Quetzalcoatl and Racing Jima is pretty much the best way to get beads. Quetzalcoatl doesn't fly, so he dies at a fairly decent pace to cap out your evaluation. The combatant's talk is good as an entry level neck for most melee jobs, but subsequent updates have made it pretty moot. I think you'll find that pretty much any Dynamis Divergence neck, even the NQ version, will completely destroy the combatant's talk. Stefan Ruth asks, can you make a Paladin guide with sets that are used today please? I don't have Paladin mastered unfortunately, I'm a Rune Fencer player as many people know. I do know how Paladin works though. On that note, if there's any watching this right now, make a dedicated set for cover. Seriously, cover lowers the built up hate of the person you're covering with every hit you take for them. That's a really useful trick to know. Torxon asks, the recent introduction of Damage Limit Plus must have increased the potential gap between tank and melee damage. Can Rune Fencers still hold a candle to other classes in terms of damage, or are they now just high damage among tanks? The recent update made Rune Fencer subbing Dark Knight even stronger than it was. Rune Fencer can match most heavy DD jobs in the past, but never forget, it is a tank job above all. If things have gone south, you need to revert to that role. I can't stress that enough. Mancy Man asks, what are your quick thoughts on mercenary services? Has it gone out of hand, or has it just become the new norm? On Azura, it has gone out of hand. I take part in mercenary services myself every now and then, but I do go out of my way to ensure new players I meet get a leg up to get rolling free of charge. I was also part of that Let's Unmerc Azura movement for a few weeks before reality slapped me in the face. That is to say, I got a bit pissed off when the people I was helping out of generosity were asking me things like, how much could you sell this for? Oh. And why is this taking so long? They weren't helping, at all. I'm still open to helping new players on Azura get started though. Look me up if you find me online. Schlide asks, can you please explain how TP works? Like FTP, should I TP at 1000 or 2000%? What is TP bonus and so forth? FTP stands for TP multiplier and is a game mechanic used to determine how TP affects weapon skills. The FTP varies from weapon skill to weapon skill, and looking up said weapon skill on the BG wiki will tell you what it does. Some weapon skills, specifically ones with damage varies with TP in them, you'll want to be using at higher TP, as this will directly increase the multiplier. This will be something like Cross Reaper or Tornado Kick, which scale their damage really high with higher TP. You also have some weapon skills which copy the FTP on the first hit across all hits of the weapon skill. This is why Resolution hits so ungodly hard. For both of these weapon skill categories, TP bonus will result in a massive increase to average damage, which is why the Lionheart and other Aeonics for those weapon skills are so strong. Finally, you have weapon skills like Drake's Bane and Victory Smite, which do not scale their damage with FTP, but do increase their critical hit chance with FTP. Same concept as weapon skills which scale their additional effect chance with higher TP, like Armor Break or Tachiya Jeha. This brings me to the end of this Q&A special. If I didn't get around to your question, then I'll try to reply to you in the original comment you left. Or it might have been brought up by someone else in this video and I answered it regardless. I'll be getting back to my regular content now, with my next video likely being an editorial on the incoming version update, as there are some job changes on the horizon. I'll see you all then.